The time for bickering is over. The time for games has passed. Now is the season for action. Now is the time to deliver on health care.
Blue Monday, how I hate Blue Monday. Got to work like a slave all day.
Okay, so the great man from Hawaii or Indonesia or Kenya or wherever has finally run into a tsunami. He and Pelosi and Reid have had the ships that they were running into the seas of socialism demasted. The canvas is gone, and they have lost a very, very serious first round that will inevitably go to the Supreme Court, and I'm convinced by my studies that they will lose in the Supreme Court. And that is because there's case law against such overreaching by a government. What I am talking about is Obamacare got struck I would say almost a fatal blow today. And we know that it was wrong from the beginning. We know they jammed it down our throats. We know that the absurd Nancy Pelosi used extra constitutional acts to get this through. We know that this entire team of Leninists and Marxists and otherwise bad people forced this down our throats against the will of the people. It's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And Pelosi and Obama could care less about the people. They care about their own agendas, and they care about forcing themselves and their will upon us, and that is called dictatorship. You know that. And the popularity, or shall I say the lack thereof, of Obamacare is at a higher level than it was even when they jammed it down our throats. But as I want to say to you again, as I did in the last hour, don't lose sight of the freedoms that you're giving up with this guy. And with the bottom line here is that Obamacare is a racket. It's socialistic. It was against the will of the people. It was forced down our throats through extra constitutional means. And today it suffered a devastating strike to the heart. And so I want to go now to the 1930s and the Obama administration and the Roosevelt administration and what Roosevelt tried to do to America then. And I'm going to show you what I laid out in Trickle-Up Poverty, okay? It's very important. You got to understand how important this stuff is. This is not just talk radio anymore. This is changing the course of human events. Hartford, Connecticut. Rooney, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
You know, it would be a pleasure for me to pick up where you left off on page 150, but I would skip over the details of the Schechter case and go to the summary that came after that. But I'd rather approach this as the greatest Christmas gift we could ask for.
It is. It's amazingly inspiring to realize that despite all the lies of the liberal media, despite all of the gangster tactics of the Obama administration, the founding fathers have won. They have won because they anticipated a day like this would come in this country. That's the way I look at it. As I said, this country has survived its scoundrels, its drunks, its womanizers, and I'm convinced we will survive this character from wherever. Now, why don't you skip to the summary, because I think that's a great... Which summary? Where is the summary?
You left off on 150 at the top, and I'm skipping over the details of the Schechter case and going to your summary that follows it on 151.
Oh, please do it, because my voice is going. Let me hear you read it.
I hope I can do it justice, but I just want to repeat that this is not just a great day for you, and it is a great day for you. And I think that we're in deep debt to you, because not only have lawyers read this, but lawyers with robes have read this.
Yeah, I think they have read my book because I did a lot of the work for them. Listen, I had people I hired to read that bill for me and give me summaries as though I was a senator having to vote on it. I didn't just write this chapter out of the blue. This is a very carefully researched chapter, and I think that my listeners appreciate that and frankly expect nothing less from me because I am a scholar by training. Rooney, you have a wonderful voice. Where are you going to pick up from? What page?
I'm on 151, third paragraph down.
Go ahead.
Where it gets into Judge Brandeis's admonition to the president.
Go ahead.
The court said that FDR's regulations were a usurpation of congressional power. After the decision was handed down, Justice Louis Brandeis told the lawyer representing FDR's New Deal, "This is the end of this business of centralization, and I want you to go back and tell the president that we're not going to let this government centralize everything. It has come to an end." I
got chills up my spine because when you read it, I actually saw it anew, afresh. I'll pick up from there, because here's what I wrote after that. Back then, we had justices who could speak plain English and tell the plain truth. Imagine one of our Supremes drawing a line in the sand against this president in such a direct manner. This brings us to how Obama's Frankenstein healthcare bill can be repealed. And then I laid out how it could be repealed. And I think that you're right. And I think lawyers and robes did read my chapter in order to draw their own conclusion, in order to find the case law that they could use to throw this monster into the sea. It is a great day for America, Rooney, and I'm not looking for the credit, but you know, and I know, that when you see 140, 150,000 people have bought this book, whatever, and they've shared some of this with others, that means 300,000 people have been educated as to what's in this bill, and this has affected the body politic and affected not only that, but the ruling elite as well. And I think we are winning. I do really think we are winning. I know we changed the course of the election. I know that. You know, I got to say this, Rooney, to you and everybody else. I believe this show reaches the independent more so than any other show in the radio. If this show is the third or fourth largest in the country, which it is, and if the other two or three are all Republican fronts, which they are, then I represent the voice of the independent more so than anybody in America. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, but it gets better. This takes it to a whole new level. This gives us hope that we can lobby the judges in a way that Mary Bonato, representing the gay, lesbian advocates and defenders, have lobbied the Supreme Courts of 5 states, and Ann Stambaugh, president of Love Makes a Family, and the GLBT Alliance, the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender alliance.
So you're saying because they have lobbied so effectively, so now can we, the people, lobby in our own directions in many, many cases, including Obamacare, right?
This is huge. And
it means that we, the people, are being heard, Rooney. I agree. For the first time, the extremist lobbying groups are no longer the only voices being listened to by the politicians and by the judges. They're all hearing us, we the people. And I think it has to do with it. The internet, talk radio, the town hall meetings, and, of course, the great Tea Party movement that is now being usurped and co-opted by the Republican Party itself, Rooney. That's the real danger, is what the Republicans are doing to the Tea Parties. We've got to be very careful not only by what the Republicans are doing, and I'm not going to name names because you know who they are. Some talk show hosts are also, in a way, triangulating the Tea Party movement and trying to move them back into the Republican fold, and in doing so, undermining the very essence of the Tea Parties. You know exactly who I'm talking about, Rooney, I am sure.
No doubt, but it leads to this. You say, keep in mind, this is something you can do rather than wait around for the check pants Republicans to act. They've already signaled they won't go to the mat to repeal the unpopular measure. They're cowering before the ever-arrogant President Obama, and that is Obama.
Well, but wait a minute. This was taken to a federal judge in Virginia. The next step is going to be taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court. In fact, Obama himself may take it to the Supreme Court because he's so arrogant and so filled with hubris. His own people are liable to say that the judge is wrong. We want to take it to the Supreme Court. I know how arrogant people function. So he's going to say, oh, no, the judge is wrong. I'm going to take it to the Supreme Court. He will lose at the Supreme Court level because there's legal precedent for uncoupling Obamacare.
We go through the gate's closed, we'll go over the fence is too high, we'll pole vault in. If that doesn't work, we'll parachute in, but we're going to get health care reform passed.
How is it that a plan that is pretty centrist, look, I mean, I'm just saying.
A plan that is pretty centrist. I guess in his circle it's pretty centrist. But in America, it was radical leftist. Yes, it was pretty centrist amongst Chavez, Castro, and Kim Jong-il. I would say that Obamacare would be considered centrist. But amongst Americans, it was very uncentrist. So without boring you with reading the chicken story, the Schechter Poultry Company, it's a phenomenally interesting case, by the way. But I don't think I want to read it to you. But it's about 4 Jewish brothers who were put in jail because they tried to stand up to FDR. He put them in jail because he told them how much to charge for their kosher chickens. They did not want to sell chickens at the same price that the government wanted them to do. The Schechter brothers were kosher butchers, and they had to remove sickly or dangerously unhealthy chickens in order to comply with kosher food laws. That flew in the face of the new regulations handed down by FDR's totalitarian mandate. Why? The government said that customers had to buy either an entire coop of chickens or half a coop of chickens, but they were forbidden to pick out particular birds in the transactions. What did it mean? In other words, the new law forced the Schechter brothers to sell unhealthy chickens to people who didn't want to buy them. Somehow operating a, quote, kosher business that way made sense in the upside-down world of Bolshevik liberalism. But from the Schechter brothers' viewpoint, this was nothing short of a violation of their religious freedom. This meant nothing to the government, I wrote, which cracked down on the Schechter brothers, saying they could not sell chickens their way. They had to sell them the government way or go to jail. Well, the brothers failed to comply. Having run afoul of the live poultry code of the NRA, they were arrested, if you can believe this. You see, you don't know history, but I'm giving it to you. They were arrested and tried in court where they went head-to-head with the government lawyers. We're talking in the 1930s. And this is all from page 150 of Trickle Up Poverty. I'm so excited that this book has turned out to be so important to this country. So let me go on. Let's not lose sight of the fact that these men were uneducated men and had no legal training. While what they did have legal representation, they didn't have deep pockets and could not hire some big shot lawyer from a top law firm to represent them. In fact, their command of English was broken, and their intonation and syntax were the sort we today associate with a stand-up comic from the Catskills. In the end, the court found them guilty as charged, fined them a year's wage, and sent them to prison. But the story doesn't end there. These four little Jewish guys, the Schechter brothers, appealed their case, which ended up in the United States Supreme Court, and against all odds, in Schechter Poultry Corp versus United States, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favor of the Schechter brothers. The Supremes ruled that FDR's program was unconstitutional on several levels. Of primary concern was the way his NRA program sought to regulate interstate commerce. Constitutionally speaking, interstate law is governed by the states and not the feds. Now, I want to pause there because what happened today is analogous. A federal court ruled Monday that a central plank of the health law violates the Constitution. U.S. District Judge Henry Hudson said the law's requirement that most Americans carry insurance or pay a penalty exceeds the constitutional boundaries of congressional power. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know it, you are living through phenomenally interesting times. You have seen a Marxist, socialist government come to power. You have seen, let's go backwards, you have seen secret hands create a banking crisis that was not necessary to have occurred. We have seen billionaires become trillionaires in wrecking our economy. Because you got to understand something, the money didn't disappear. The money you have lost in the 401ks, the money you lost when Lehman Brothers went out of business, the money that you said was, the money that you were told was gone, it wasn't gone. Money didn't disappear. It didn't go into the air. It was stolen. It was stolen by men much bigger than Madoff. And they are still walking around free on this planet. That's right. Some of them are called senator. Some of them are called congressmen. Some of them are called this. Some of them are called that. They engineered this crisis, as I pointed out in my brilliant book, Trickle Up Poverty, because it's not just about Obamacare. How did we get here? How did we get a communist government in power out of nowhere? The country, after all, is not a leftist. Country is not to the left of center. I have said to you for years, I know the country's not a right-wing country, but the country is a centrist country, or I would say center-right. More particularly, if I define what the politics of this country are overall, it'd be center-right. How do we wind up with a radical, off-the-charts, radical left-wing government with secret czars running everything, and then Obamacare, like out of Cuba, forced down our throats? You have to understand it's all spelled out in my brilliant discourse. It's 10 PhDs in that book. There are 10 PhDs in that one book. And I am so proud to tell you that I wrote it. How do you like that?
Savage.
All right, so a judge has struck down a key provision of the health law. He ruled that it was overreaching, exceeds the Constitution. I'm celebrating because my book has a whole chapter which laid out the legal basis for this claim. It's not over, but it will go to the Supreme Court, and I'm convinced that the Supremes will rule in the same exact way because this law is unconstitutional. There's no question in my mind that the individual mandate would invite unbridled exercise of federal police powers, wrote Judge Hudson. Police powers. Do you have any idea what this means? I mean, there's so much in this. You have no idea. The mandate would make you buy health care, which is against the law, unconstitutional. And the ruling says at its core, this dispute is not simply about regulating the business of insurance or crafting a scheme of universal health